On November 30, 2022, OpenAI released a chatbot. 1 million people signed up in 5 days. 100 million in 2 months. Newspapers called it the birth of AI. It was not the birth of AI. What you saw on November 30, 2022 was the moment 72 years of work finally became visible to everyone at the same time. AI was not born in 2022. It almost died in 1969. It almost died again in 1987. It was rebuilt by people nobody believed in, twice. And it crossed the line from research to reality because of one competition result in 2012 that shocked an entire field into reorganizing overnight. There are 5 moments that made modern AI possible. ChatGPT is the 5th. Here are all 5. And the humans behind each one. Moment 1. 1950, a question. Alan Turing was 38 years old. He had already broken Nazi encryption at Bletchley Park. He had already written a foundational paper on what computers could theoretically compute. He was arguably the most important mathematician in Britain. In 1950, he published a paper in the journal Mind. The title was Computing Machinery and Intelligence. It opened with a single question. Can machines think? That is it. Can machines think? Turing knew the question was too philosophical to answer directly. So he proposed a test. Put a human and a machine in separate rooms. Have a judge ask them questions through a text interface. If the judge cannot reliably tell which is the machine has passed. The Turing test. No one built anything from this paper immediately. There were no computers powerful enough. There was no data. There was no training method. What Turing gave the field was something more important than a blueprint. He gave it a question worth spending a life on. He died 4 years later. He was 41. He never saw what his question started. But every person who has ever worked in AI begins from that question. Can machines think? In 2026, that question is still not fully answered. Moment 2. 1956, a room. 8 people. A name. John McCarthy was a 29-year-old mathematician at Dartmouth College in New Hampshire. In 1955, he wrote a proposal for a summer research project. He wanted to gather the best minds working on thinking machines and spend 8 weeks working on the problem together. The proposal included a line that changed everything. The study is to proceed on the basis of the conjecture that every aspect of learning or any other feature of intelligence can in principle be so precisely described that a machine can be made to simulate it. He needed a name for the field. He chose 2 words. Artificial intelligence. The Dartmouth Conference ran in the summer of 1956. The attendees included McCarthy, Marvin Minsky, Claude Shannon, Nathaniel Rochester from IBM. They were so few they fit around one table. What came out of the conference was not a breakthrough result. It was something more durable. A field. A name. A shared direction. When McCarthy wrote artificial intelligence into that proposal, he was not describing something that existed. He was naming something he intended to build. 70 years later, the field he named employs millions of people and consumes hundreds of billions of dollars in capital every year. That name. Those 2 words. Changed how humanity thought about what machines could be. Moment 3. 1969 to 1987. The 2 times AI almost died. After the Dartmouth Conference, governments poured money in. Researchers were confident. The atmosphere was, AI is coming. It is a matter of years, not decades. The computers could not do it. In 1969, Marvin Minsky and Seymour Papert published a book called Perceptrons. Their conclusion: perceptrons could not solve the kinds of problems AI needed to solve. Funding collapsed. The field entered what became known as the first AI winter. Laboratories closed. Researchers left. The problems had been overpromised and underdelivered. A revival came in the early 1980s. Japan launched a billion-dollar 5th-generation computer project. Expert systems seemed to be working. Then. That collapsed too. Expert systems were brittle. They could not generalize. They could not learn. The second AI winter. By 1987, AI had failed to deliver on 2 decades of promises. But 3 people did not leave. Geoffrey Hinton, Jan LeCun, Yoshua Bengio. They kept working on neural networks, the approach Minsky and Papert had declared dead. They believed the problem was not the concept. The problem was the lack of data and the lack of compute. Give neural networks enough of both, and they would learn. Nobody believed them for a long time. Funding was almost impossible to get. Papers were hard to publish. The field had moved on. For years, these three worked largely in obscurity on something the mainstream had written off. They would later be called the godfathers of AI. One of them, Geoffrey Hinton, won the Nobel Prize in Physics in October 2024. And then immediately said he regrets some of what he built. That is a separate story. But the regret of the man who made AI possible, after winning the Nobel Prize for making it possible, is one of the most complicated sentences in modern science. Moment 4. 2012, one competition. Everything changed. The ImageNet Large-Scale Visual Recognition Challenge was an annual competition. For several years, the best systems had error rates around 26%. Progress was incremental. In 2012, Geoffrey Hinton's team at the University of Toronto submitted an entry called AlexNet. Their error rate was 15.3%. The second-place team had 26.2%. That gap, 10 percentage points, was not an incremental improvement. It was a discontinuity. The kind of result that does not happen in mature fields. AlexNet was a deep convolutional neural network. Exactly the kind of system Minsky and Papert had said could not work. After AlexNet, the field reorganized overnight. Universities that had abandoned neural networks rebuilt their programs. Funding flooded in. Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, all began hiring anyone who understood deep learning. Two of AlexNet's three authors went on to co-found or join the companies that built the AI products you use today. Ilya Sutskever co-founded OpenAI. The 2012 ImageNet result is the true beginning of modern AI. Everything after it was acceleration. Everything before it was groundwork. Moment 5. 2017, 8 authors. 1 paper. By 2017, deep learning was established. But text was still hard. Processing language in sequence, word by word, struggled with long-range dependencies. 8 researchers at Google published a paper called Attention is All You Need. The title was a joke. A playful overclaim by researchers who thought the paper was good but did not expect it to be the most consequential AI paper of the decade. The paper introduced the transformer architecture. The core idea, instead of processing text word by word in sequence, let every word in a sentence attend to every other word simultaneously. This is called the attention mechanism. It made language models dramatically better. And dramatically faster to train. GPT. Then GPT-2. Then GPT-3. Then GPT-4. Then ChatGPT. Claude. Gemini. Llama. Grok. Every major AI assistant in existence today runs on the transformer architecture from that 2017 paper. The 8 authors have largely left Google. Several founded competing AI labs. The people who wrote the paper that enabled the current generation of AI are now building against each other, using the same architecture they invented together. Now the moment you lived through. November 30, 2022. OpenAI released ChatGPT. 1 million users in 5 days. Not because the technology was new. GPT-3 had existed since 2020. What was new was the interface. A simple text box. Type a question. Get an answer. No API. No technical knowledge required. No barrier. The technology had existed in various forms for years. What changed was access. And when access changed, everything changed. That moment in November 2022 did not create AI. Turing's question in 1950 started it. McCarthy's name in 1956 defined it. Hinton, LeCun and Bengio's persistence through 2 AI winters kept it alive. AlexNet in 2012 proved it could work at scale. The Transformer paper in 2017 gave it language. ChatGPT in 2022 gave it to everyone. Here is what I think is the most important thing about this story. AI almost did not happen. Twice. The people who built it were told they were wrong. Funded with difficulty. Published with resistance. Watched their field collapse around them, not once but twice, and kept working anyway. The AI you use today is not the product of a smooth march of progress. It is the product of a small number of people who refused to stop when everyone else had. That fact does not make AI less impressive. It makes it more impressive. And it raises a question worth sitting with in 2026. If we are at moment 5, what does moment 6 look like? And who is working on it right now, in a lab nobody is funding, on a problem everyone else has given up on? Subscribe for daily AI coverage. Which of these 5 moments surprised you most? Tell me the one you did not know before this video. I read every single comment.